Hey everybody, wanted to cover a lot of information in a short period of time, so I'm going to get right at it. A couple of you pointed out, kind of comically, that in the past video I said I was going to prove Dr. Oz wrong, but I never actually did. So if it wasn't clear, let me make it very clear now. And I'm sorry for any confusion. So if you take what Dr. Oz is suggesting, which is the baking soda, and you add it to acid in your stomach acid, these two things will neutralize, right? And that's why you feel better, and that's his point. Here's my question to you, and here's what has continued to be my question to all of you for the 16 years that we've operated Fit for Life. This is the question. Did you fix the underlying issue? No. You did what medical doctors do. You created a palliative. You put a Band-Aid on it. You did not fix the underlying issue. And this is the medical model. And it's very disappointing to see somebody like Dr. Oz demonstrate this on live television to millions and millions of people. And again, I will also talk more specifically about his other remedy, which has real consequences and problems as well. But at this juncture, you should see that baking soda is absolutely not the solution. In fact, I'm going to explain why it makes it worse. Why does it make it worse? Is your stomach meant to be acidic or not? Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. Your stomach is supposed to be very acidic. You're supposed to have that powerful acid in your stomach in order to break food down into a very particular type of material, which we'll talk about on Sunday, in order to move into the duodenum and down your digestive tract, where as things move along, they become less and less and less acidic. And along the pathway, we're going to talk about what nutrients get assimilated and how and why certain things like calcium and iron may be deficient in your blood despite the food that you're apparently eating. Again, it's a bigger conversation. That's why we have seminars. But I'm just making the point here that if you continue to neutralize the acid in your stomach and act like that's solving the problem, it's not. You are not going to be able to properly break down food in one of the most important places for food to be broken down. So we know that the digestion process starts in your mouth, and we're supposed to chew. Guess what most people don't do? They don't do that. And then you're going to reduce your stomach acid and then wonder what the heck is going on with your digestion and your nutrition and how you feel, and act like we don't understand what's going on. I'm telling you what's going on. And like I said, when somebody like Dr. Oz with his type of audience gets on live television and makes statements like this further exacerbates the issue. So hopefully that is now crystal clear. However, I want to use this conversation as a springboard to talk about somebody that I met with yesterday and had an interesting conversation. So this is somebody that I met with about their 23andMe results for the first time. In the interim, she had done the UTC going back many years, had done very, very well, lost a lot of weight, changed a lot of issues that she had in her body for the better, but she continued to have some interesting blood work. So as I talked to her yesterday, I was, what's going on? What do you have going on here? And what is the doctor recommending? The doctor recommended all great things, and many of you would be familiar with what's being recommended. Ubiquinol, we haven't heard of that before. D3, have we heard of that? Magnesium, B complex, right? All things that we've talked about and sell at the gym. Again, fish oil. But she had something very specific going on. And what she had going on was high homocysteine levels. Now, homocysteine, it's a big deal. If your homocysteine levels stay high. So you guys know that Luke Perry just died. One of the interesting things that we can predict about high homocysteine is possible stroke, but also certainly cardiovascular risks. So high homocysteine is a big issue, and a lot of blood work, a lot of doctors actually won't even ask for it to be measured because they'll just go based on LDL, HDL, blood pressure, and things like that. But we'll talk about that as well in a second. Here's the deal, though. What's interesting is you will learn on Sunday how interesting what I talked to her about with her polymorphisms has very much to do with homocysteine and how related it is to her stomach. And without letting this cat out of the bag, I will just tell you, when you look at most digestive enzymes, they have particular things in it. And I'm going to talk about one particular thing on Sunday that helps to lower homocysteine. And like I said, it is a very common thing in most good stomach enzymes. And so we'll talk about that. But let me talk about, since I brought up cardiovascular disease, LDL, HDL, homocysteine. There was another question earlier, and I was going to make this a separate video, but I might as well address it right now. I'm really happy to get some of the questions you guys ask, and I love them. Please continue, and a lot of you stay informed on many things. So somebody brought to my attention a particular expert in the field who was making a point, a young guy, and I'm very familiar with him and his work, and I'm also very familiar with the point that was being made here, but let's look at it more carefully, so hear me out. This particular individual is sort of speaking out against this idea of VLDL, very low density lipoprotein. I have a video on this, by the way, parts 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about LDL if you want to reference what I'm talking about here. But this idea that VLDL matters more than anything else. And he's making the point that actually total LDL still really does very much matter, regardless if it's VLDL or not. And he's saying it's simply a numbers game, that at the end of the day, the more LDL that's in your bloodstream, the more likely it is for that LDL to create consequences in the arterial walls where there's damage, okay? So when there's damage, that's where the problems occur, when these LDL particles get lodged. And he says that this is simply a numbers game, it's a math game, and he uses this analogy of saying, if you were to put basically like toy boats into a pond, that the more boats you have in the pond, eventually those boats will drift and hit the shoreline. So it's a probability game. You keep putting more and more and more boats in, eventually it's going to hit the shoreline. Okay, I agree with that 100%, but check this out. Hear me out. Let's use this same reasoning here. When we're talking about very low density lipoproteins, which I suggest and many other really phenomenal experts in the field will agree that VLDL really is an issue, because when we're looking at very low density lipoproteins, we're talking about something smaller and something that's bigger. Now, VLDL, when you're getting it measured, as opposed to the lighter buoyant LDL particles, yes, they are all LDL particles. If you're unfamiliar, they come in all different shapes and sizes. LDL isn't just this like one thing in your bloodstream that floats around and it looks a particular way. It comes in different sizes. So when we're talking about LDL, we really want to have the light, fluffier ones. That's better. That's why a total cholesterol or even total LDL number isn't as telling as what your VLDL is. But let's go back to his point. If it is in fact a math game, which it is, when very low density lipoproteins are floating around, which ones are more likely to lodge into the arterial walls? The lower density ones, the small ones, or the big ones? For sake of math here, the low density ones compared to the light buoyant ones are more than twice as big. So let's please just use that analogy. Remember, these micro tears happen slowly over time. So the things that are going to get lodged in there are going to be the very low density lipoproteins ones first. Again, for the same reason that we've already described, it is a math game. Okay, and smaller objects mathematically are going to have a higher probability of getting lodged into these damaged arterial walls. I mean, hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So we can't just use part of an argument, right? We have to see the whole argument and what the point is about VLDL that's talked about by many researchers, and it does hold up. It holds water. It makes sense, everybody, okay? Speaking of which, LDL and whatnot, if you're taking statins in 23andMe tests, there are, in fact, 23andMe polymorphisms that will predict exactly how you're going to react to statin use. And if you're not familiar on the research with statins and what it does to you and downstream effects, and if you have these polymorphisms, I really, really suggest that you take a look and get educated, or maybe just make an appointment with me so that we can talk. More than anything, it's not just a matter of me talking, it's a matter of me talking and then sending you the peer-reviewed research, right? The PubMed research with these PhDs that all they do all day long is do actual research on these things, okay? If you assume that the medical doctor that you're going to is writing your prescription for the statin is familiar with all of this PubMed research, I assure you, you're wrong. It's not because your doctor's stupid. He's way smarter than me and most people on the planet. It's just a function of how much information you can actually deal with on any given day when doctors are dealing with patients all day, all the time. And when you look at the standard medical model, where they're getting their knowledge and their information is in fact through the pharmaceutical channel. And statins is the way to address the issue in the standard medical model. They have no interest in knowing anything about ubiquinol, vitamin C, all these things. I assure you, go ahead and have a conversation with him. Ask him to tell you the peer-reviewed research on these things. It will not be forthcoming. I promise you that. And if it is, then you've got a damn good doctor. But I'm happy to send you all that research so that you can go in well armed. The point is here, everybody, it's up to each of us to look into our health, to understand our health, and for your family and for your kids to keep them healthy. And some of this stuff is really just kind of obvious, like hopefully the stomach acid thing was obvious to you guys. And when we run seminars, I try to make it obvious. I try to have a conversation with you all so that when we're done, you all sit there and go, wow, that makes a lot of sense intuitively. And if it doesn't, like I said, when I speak, it's based on the PhD peer-reviewed research, not in one article, not on 5 people or 12 people, but mostly meta-analysis done on large populations over time. And that's what it should be about. All right, guys, that's enough of me rambling today. All right, have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.